Yokoso Otakus, I did something pretty crazy today. I spent a ton of time digging into the battle mechanics and the XP rates that you see in Digimon Survive to try to understand the battle system a little bit more. I found out some interesting stuff. So to preface this, everything I'll be talking about today is going to be very early battles. And in fact, everything took place the minute you unlock free battles, which for me was about 3 hours into the game live streaming it. But for you, you might be able to get there a little bit faster, maybe in about 2 hours or so. So I know the game isn't too combat heavy, but there was some stuff that I wanted to figure out and kind of look at. And one of the things was how the difficulty levels affected the game. Now there's 4 difficulty levels in the game: very easy, normal, and hard. And I just have to say right off the top, the only thing that these difficulty levels affect is how much damage you do to the enemies, how much damage the enemies do to you, and how much of a chance that they have to cause status ailments on you when they do an attack that hits you and has a chance to put you to sleep. The chance is higher in the harder difficulties and lower in the easier difficulties. What it does not affect is your negotiations, and it does not affect your XP rates whatsoever. Now, one of the things that I found was no matter what difficulty level you're playing, no matter how many different characters are in your party, and no matter what level the characters are in your party, you gain the same XP rates. At the very beginning, every single thing that I fought, there's only 3 Digimon that you have access to in the first battles, they all equaled 55 XP if you defeated them in battle. If you defeated 2 of the enemies in battle, you would get about 84-ish. There was a little bit of deviancy that I found with a lot of these rates, but most of the time it was 55 for 1 and 84 for 2. One of the things that I found was interesting is that you gain XP even if you try to negotiate. So if you negotiate with all the characters in the battle, then you'll get XP for the battle, but it will not be equal to what you get for fighting them. And actually, it's interesting because whether you succeed in the battle finishes or you fail in the battle finishes, you still get an equal amount of 20 XP. Now, the 3 Digimon that you have access to in your first set of battles is Betamon, Gotsumon, and Gaizamon. Gaizamon is the only one that you'll only encounter 1 of at any single time, whereas the other 2 you can have up to 2 of the enemies appear during the battles. One thing that I thought was kind of cool is you can see in advance who you're going to be fighting in the free battles, because if you look at the bottom of the screen, when you've selected free battle, you'll see a little icon that shows the Digimon there, and that is always the Digimon that you will be fighting. If you jump to a free battle and you're trying to negotiate with a Digimon and you want them to join your team, if you fail the questions, then what will happen is that Digimon will get angry and it'll get a boost to its attack. You will not be able to negotiate it with it any farther. However, if you hit the start button, you can pick retry battle and it'll reset everything again. In fact, you have to build your whole party and it'll act like you never did that again. This is really helpful when it comes to Gaizamon because in the very beginning, he is absolutely a challenge to get. I had a really hard time with his questions, and then finally once I got his questions, I had a really low chance of actually capturing him because it's at around 25%, and none of the Digimon that you have match up with him well enough to get the higher boost rates for it. So if you want to have a higher chance at catching them, you want to have a Digimon that not only has the same type as him, but also a high moral for that type as well. That will increase that stat. Betamon and Gotsumon are actually pretty easy to get. You have pretty high rates on them. I think it's somewhere up to 67%, but the third one, like I said, is only 25%. It's really low, and I have not been able to capture them even when I've just been grinding these over and over and over again. So I wanted to talk about a couple little quick tips also for the game, things to remember. The first one is that the difficulty is remembered. So you don't get to actually choose the difficulty until you've built your team. You said you want to start the battle, and then it gives you the battle conditions. Well, the battle conditions are displayed on the screen. You'll be able to hit X and select your difficulty level. Whatever you choose will be remembered. So if you finish that battle off and then you jump back into it again, it's going to default to that. So just remember that if you're playing on easy mode because you're trying to grind really quick and then you want to change it to hard mode later, just make sure that you double check that because it will be remembered from before. The other thing that I found is that side and back attacks don't need to happen right on top of the character. You can actually have your characters spread out at a distance and do distance attacks, and as long as you're in the vicinity of being behind them or to the side of them, you will get those bolstered attacks. Now, that's pretty important because it does quite a bit more damage when you do side and back attacks. It should be pretty well known that that's how it works, but I just wanted to make sure that people knew that. The other thing that I really wanted to point out, and I had mentioned it before, but your XP does not change if you have less party members. Sometimes games will make it so that, you know, you can have a maximum of 6, but if you use less, the XP will get distributed over them wider. But in this game, you know, if I got 55 XP with 6 party members, I would also get 55 XP if I just had 1 party member. Another good thing to remember is if you have some sort of critical failure in the battle, you can just re-roll it. You just press the start button again and you can just choose to restart the battle. In certain maps, you'll find elevation differences, so you'll be able to hop up on a little step or something and be at a higher elevation than the other enemy. What this affects is the critical rate. So if you're at a higher elevation than something that you're attacking, your chance of getting your critical attack is much higher. And the last thing I wanted to talk about was the affinity rating that you have with your friends. During the normal story mode of the game, you'll be able to have options whether you want to talk with one person or help one person over another. When you do that, it raises your affinity. Now, what the affinity level does is the Digimon that character has attached to them will have higher chances of doing support moves during the battles, and these happen randomly. And also, you don't have to be right packed close to each other. Neck and neck, you can be at a little bit of a distance of each other and still get these effects. The higher the affinity you have, the higher the chance that that will happen in either case. So it is a pretty important thing to remember, and the support moves can be pretty helpful, but they also are really random chance, so it's hard to really count on them. So this was just a quick rundown of how some of the mechanics work behind the scenes after doing a bunch of digging through it. I hope you guys found some interest in it. I know this is very early game stuff. I will probably make another video that will be a little bit more robust later down the line when I get more into the mechanics. I know we haven't got into like Digi evolutions or anything at where I'm at in the playthrough, and I'm really kind of interested in seeing how that works and if they add more mechanics into it the farther you get in the game. But everything here is valid up to the point where you get the first free battle systems. If you guys like the content, hit the thumbs up, and if you want to see more anime news, reviews, and Digimon Survive coverage, feel free to hit subscribe on Yokoso Otaku and join Senpai Squad. Catch you later.